Shalom. There are many people who are given many God-given gifts, gifts that they use in their life for many different purposes, and hopefully in general to make the world a better place. And of course, we all want to in some way develop that potential that we have to be able to know that we're doing something in life that is consistent with what our abilities are, to develop our true potential. Well, in Judaism, there are many ways to develop those God-given gifts. And art is one of those ways which only few people are gifted with, but when we do develop it, of course, the product is something that we all stand in awe of and have tremendous admiration for the product of their work. We have with us tonight somebody who is, of course, very well known in the world of Jewish art and Chassidic art in particular. His name is Michael Muchnik, and his name is known throughout the Jewish world for its beautiful, thoughtful, deep, and meaningful art, which literally lifts the spirits. And that's what we're going to do for the last half hour, is hopefully lift your spirits. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Michael Muchnik. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me back again.
And we've seen your art, of course, how it's developed and grown over the years, and it's really incredible to see the type of a product that you're putting out for your customers. It's really a wonderful thing to see.
Appreciate it.
Well, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you got involved with Jewish art, because I'm sure that's a particular area that I'm particularly curious about, so perhaps you can give us a little bit of an insight.
Well, I'm Jewish.
All right, that's a very good answer. All right, on to the next question.
No, it's interesting. Like, what is Jewish art? What is Chassidic art? I'm asked these questions many, many times. And to tell you the truth, when I look back at it, my teenage years, when I was really developing my artistic abilities at that time in a serious way, I did very little work that you would consider Jewish themes at the time. But as my own interest grew about my Jewish identity, and with the introduction of the study of the Chassidic ideas, that are found in the Torah, wisdom, then it started to come into the paintings themselves, and the paintings started to portray beautiful ideas that we find in the esoteric part of the Torah wisdom.
As you were making that evolutionary change for yourself in your own art style, did you ever have any question about whether or not you should remain in art or not remain in art, if you should go and, let's say, become a rabbi or do something else in the field of Judaism?
There was one point in my life when I had this question, not because I didn't enjoy the art or my drive wasn't there, but because I figured as a student in the rabbinical college that maybe my talents should be, or my mission in life would be directed in some other area, like, for instance, as a sofer, a scribe. And I did, in a personal interview, asked the Lubavitcher Rebbe what he suggested.
And what did the Rebbe say to you?
Well, as far as becoming a scribe, he suggested that I see one. When I was shown the piles of laws that one would have to learn, and I'm not the most studious person, and when I started to practice and realized how long it would take, and that would be, I would be so immersed in that I would not really have the time to do my paintings. And then when I thought about the fact that actually the Rebbe spoke in my yechidus about all, in the private interview, about all these different things I could do with my art to spread, Jewish ideas throughout the world, and by way of children's books, ketubot, which are marriage contracts, and seeing how the Rebbe himself even kept one of the pieces that I offered him, at the...
Really?
Actually, he didn't keep it. He asked me if it was an original. I said, yeah. He said he cannot keep an original. He said, if I make a print of it, then he'll take a print. So later on, I made a print of it. I sent it to the Rebbe. But, so really quite soon after that,
So the Rebbe encouraged you to go and continue with that?
Yeah, I'm looking back and I see that I was actually excited about the fact that I had this talent that could be utilized in such a way.
Now, you've taken that talent and put it into many different areas. As you mentioned, you have children's books. You've been published in many other books with your art. It's been chosen, I think, by the UN also as one of your pieces.
Years ago, UNICEF used, they would pick a card for their holiday cards. They'd always pick a Jewish card for their Rosh Hashanah, New Year's card. Yeah, it was chosen. There are other organizations and things.
Now, you also travel around the world as well, because for Chabad...
I still do.
There are many Chabad houses where you have rabbis who love your work and are very happy to be able to have you do an art show in their community. So you've been to all the continents and literally seen the whole Jewish world.
All over.
Now, what kind of reaction do you get? Art is something, of course, that is
It's
above
universal.
language. It's universal. Everybody can relate to it. What kind of reaction do you have, though, the way you see people react, let's say, in South Africa as opposed to Israel, as opposed to the States or Australia? Is there a difference?
I think it is amazing to me because in all my travels, it is. There's something above time and place with a painting that has a Jewish depth into it. And therefore, when you're showing it to it, whether it's a Jew or non-Jew, as I've seen in my travels, that the response is always. I mean, there are certain things with culture you have to find out about this, that, and that, but the response to the paintings themselves are often very similar, regardless of where I am.
Right. Now, I know during these art shows, a lot of times you'll do a slide presentation and you'll explain the meaning of the art pieces you have. Now, we have a couple of pieces here which I want to show now to be able to let our audience, and maybe you can give a little bit of an insight. What makes a piece of art Jewish? In other words, how is this something that is expressly of a Jewish theme? Where do you come up with the idea? What's the source for it? What do you do with it? What are the inner meanings behind it? So if we could show the first piece, which I believe is a very interesting piece that has a type of mosaic design to it.
Well, it actually is made of clay.
Made of clay, okay.
Yes.
We have it up on the screen. Can you give us, obviously that's the multicolored coat of Joseph.
Yeah, Joseph's coat of many colors.
That's a better way of putting it.
And this is made out of art clay, and then there's some color clay, and the rest is painted. Has some metallic work on it, and in this particular coat, of course, we don't know exactly what the coat looked like. We know it was a beautiful coat. We understand it had many colors and fine embroidery, or whatever. And if you remember in the story, how the brothers became jealous of Joseph is one of the reasons why they sold him into slavery. But in any which case, in this picture, we actually have a number of the dreams that are associated with the story of Joseph.
Okay.
We have the sun, moon, and stars near the top. They're bowing down to the name of Joseph, because in a dream that he had, which also caused the brothers to become jealous, because the stars, the moon, and the sun, the moon, and the stars referred to his parents and his brothers all bowing down to him.
Right.
We have on the bottom the sheaves of wheat which bowed down to his sheaf.
Correct.
And then on the top, I have one of the dreams that the butler had, where it shows actually the grapes coming back into the cup,
Right.
and his life was restored. Now, there were other dreams, many dreams in that particular story about Joseph, but I only put the good dreams on the coat.
Okay. So what you're doing is really incorporating a lot of the Torah into your art.
Right.
Do you do that in general?
Yes. I will put the ideas, stories from the Torah itself, or the Chassidic interpretation, or the mood of a particular thing in a spiritual sense.
Right.
And I try to incorporate it into that painting. No, it's more of a symbolic thing.
Okay. Now, how do you come up with these ideas? You just sit around your house. I mean, this, of course, applies to any artist. Sit around the house and just wait for a dream or to be struck by lightning or whatever it might be?
Well, it depends which aspect. I really do study the Torah, and especially like I said, the Hasidic or the esoteric parts of the Torah and the inner meanings of the particular passage in the Torah, and that gives me ideas pictorially how to, or I think in a pictorial manner, how to portray those particular ideas. The colors, the ideas, the parables, and how you do it. That's the talent of an artist. I don't know how else to explain that.
That's something that moves you at the time.
I think.
So let's look at your second piece.
This piece is called "The Ring and the Rose."
Okay.
And now this is based on an allegory from King Solomon's Song of Songs, where he likens the Jewish people to a rose surrounded by prickly thorns. This, as explained in commentaries, due to the difficult history that the Jewish people have had throughout the generations, that when they maintain their faith in God, despite the either other ideologies trying to sway us away from our belief, or the persecutions or whatever, that meaning the thorns, that when we maintain our belief, our faith, then we are like that beautiful rose. It's not marred by the obstacles, the difficulties. The ring is based on it's my own design, but there was wedding rings which were ornamental rings, not the actual marriage ring that they were married with. Mm-hmm. But it was an ornamental ring in certain communities, I think in Italy and some other places, and it had a round eternal shape of a ring, and on top was either a synagogue or a Jewish home, and it represented the blessing given to the bride and the groom, that they should have an everlasting, eternal home in the nation of Israel. But that really means that their good deeds, and God willing, they should have children and children and children up until the coming of the redemption of the Jewish people in the end of days, that they should have an eternal effect. The ring together with the rose would be the marriage between God and the Jewish people, which took place in the giving of the Torah, and meaning in a deeper sense that our relationship with our Creator should be one like the love of a marriage.
Exactly. All right.
Also pictured in that picture, actually, all the fruits of Israel, which are indigenous to the land, the Holy Land, and there's, of course, many things written about the qualities of those fruits and why we are likened to those fruits, etc., etc.
Let me ask you a little question about Jewish art history. Mm-hmm. We see many books of Jewish art history, but most of them are really synagogue objects. They're artistic Havdalah candles, they're Kiddush cups, perhaps the pointer,
Torah pointers,
the Torah pointer, the breastplates, the crown for the Torah.
Curtains.
So the curtains. So all of the artwork, it seems, was really very much directed towards practical objects. What your art is really much more of a creative, personal type of expression of beautifying the Torah, beautifying the meaning of the different passages in the Torah. Is that a departure from traditional Jewish art?
In a way, yes, it is. Today, because of the appreciation of art for art's sake, or art which has, you will gain inspiration from looking at art, people are very interested in art, it's actually become a very good a way to spread beautiful ideas from Judaism. I do make objects also, and I've decorated objects because when people come to synagogue or in their home, they use beautiful handmade menorahs, artistically made or whatever, Kiddush cups which are engraved with beautiful designs. These are inspirational, so I do those also. In the past, though, you would probably want to say that most of the Judaica and most of Jewish art was used for the objects of which would be used for a mitzvah, a commandment, or something in Jewish, ritual.
In fact, there's a principle in Judaism which, in a way, mandates us to try to beautify our fulfillment of the commandments. That it shouldn't just be a rote type of commandment or fulfillment of the commandment. We should do it in a way that beautifies it. Zeh Keli Vanvehu. This is my God, and I will praise Him. I will show that I can do the extra yard, or do something in order to be able to...
In all ways, you should know Him in every single thing that you're doing, even in a particular object you're using for...
Right, and not just to do it just as a rote or because I have to do it, but to really do it out of enthusiasm.
In a beautiful way.
When a person does something, they do it with beautification. It
shows
that
excited
they really
about it.
Exactly, it's making a statement. Exactly. Right. So when you have this type of beautiful art, it shows us not only on a personal level, but of course for whoever is partaking it or buying it from you, that they also are beautifying or showing this level of appreciation of their Judaism or of the Torah, depending on what the message is. So let's take a look at the third piece. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yes, this is called Avram, or Abraham's tent.
This is a little bit of an older piece for you, no?
Not so old.
No, it's more recent? Okay.
This is a lithograph.
Your style has developed over time, so...
right, but
I'm a student of your style, so I know where it's come from. But
all artists have their periods. Well, actually, this is a lithograph, and that limits anyway the type of medium, to type of style that you can use. But in any
Right,
which
what
case,
does it say at the bottom? Baruch Shahanu
this is
Lo V'Tuvochayinu.
right. Well, actually, this is what we say before we say the grace after meals.
Right.
To thank the Creator for, and it says, "Blessed." I think, "Blessed be the one of whose bounty we have partaken, and whose whose goodness we live." And the reason I wrote this there is basically this is what Abraham and his wife Sarah asked the guests who they invited into their tent in the desert. They would provide them with all their needs, fantastic food which you couldn't find so easily in the desert, and they would ask them to thank the Creator for the food, who was the one who ultimately would be responsible for giving the blessing of this to the guest. And if they were arrogant about it and didn't want to do that, then he would ask them to please pay for their stay.
So it was a pretty good deal.
They got a pretty good deal, and in this way, he was teaching them that
about monotheism.
About monotheism.
Right.
He was
this is what we call gastronomic Judaism.
You see, yeah, that's the source of lots of food.
Right.
In this picture, you have the tent of Aaron was open from four sides, and you see the back, front, side, left, and the right side open, so that they would not miss anyone, because he had so much kindness that he and his wife wanted to share with others what they had. On the top of the tent is what they call the cloud. It was like a cloud. It was sort of a protective cloud, and it was in the merit of actually Sarah, his wife Sarah. And it says miraculously that when she would light the oil lamps for the Sabbath day, before the Sabbath day, that they would just stay lit miraculously the whole week, and they would go out just when she was ready to light for the next week. The cloud departed when she passed away, and when Abraham's son Isaac again married his wife Rivka, then the cloud came back, and said that he was comforted again because the cloud came back over his tent. So it showed the merit of the righteous women, starting with the matriarchs.
All right. Can you tell us a little bit about your journeys also? I find it fascinating that because of your position, you've been able to literally journey the world. And I know you mentioned a little bit about in the beginning of the show, but any specific situations where you saw that a person was really touched by your art, or you had an experience that really touched you because of your ability to show art to somebody? Did that ever happen?
I've had many of them. I'll tell you briefly that just the other day, students came from Pittsburgh, and they were staying in our house, some of them, but there was a whole group of students who came, college students. One of them was blind, and he came over to the house, and I took him up to the studio on the third floor. I took his hand, I walked him up, and he's a very brilliant person. He's in law school, I believe, and I have been making these mosaics, and they have these designs in them.
Right.
And I took his hand, and he was rubbing them, and he could feel all the texture and the design. So then I took him over, and I showed a whole Jerusalem scene with the temple in the background. He liked that so much, and he said he wanted to buy one of my sculptures.
Really?
It was very interesting. In any which case, there was one time when one of my series of children's books were taken by yeshiva students in the summer. They go to camps, Jewish camps, different places, and a father was picking up his son, and he met these two boys, and they bought one of my little books. And in the book, it talked about Shabbos and kosher and keeping kosher amongst. In the context of the whole story, which is a cute little story. And that year, they actually started keeping kosher.
Really?
And they lived in a place where there was no really other Orthodox people to learn from in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And they started keeping the Shabbos on their own level until a year later in the summer when the kid was back in camp, and these two more students came, and they said, "You got to come over to the house." And they became like actually a full-fledged,
religious
family. And then there was a girl who stopped by me during the holidays and said that, remember me, I came to your art show a year ago. And the day after, I was so excited from what you were telling me that I went back there and I started to study with the rabbi in the Chabad house. And then, you know, she has a family now, and she lives in Crown Heights.
Now, I know there have been other Chassidic artists, famous artists as well. Can you tell us a little bit about perhaps the difference in styles that you have, and what you found, what inspiration you got from them as far as what they were able to contribute in terms of perceiving Torah, giving a sense of the Chassidic way of life or the Jewish way of life? Was there...
Well, what's very interesting, there is a number of Chassidic artists, a number of Jewish artists who paint Chassidic themes, and each one is so different from another, which just shows that, like, even though we are keeping the same Torah, that each person has such a different expression of it that it's like, it's incredible how different, how unique each person can express his own relationship with his creator, and how he interprets, you know,
But when you see art from a different painter, a different artist,
I don't look at art from different artists. I can't remember their names. All artists have this problem. Am I inspired by their art? I'm inspired that I appreciate their way of, you know, interpreting it.
I see Jacques Lifshitz, who was a very well-known...
Well, Jacques Lifshitz was a very well-known French sculptor. He did many abstract sculptures, and he did many Jewish themes. He had, you know, Shlugging Kapporis, so the famous, one of his sculptures where an old, like, Jewish man was, you know, taking the chicken over for the before Yom Kippur, the morning before, and he did many things like that. And when he was an older man, he came to visit the Lubavitch Rebbe. This was back now late 50s, early 60s, and they became connected in this way. And the Rebbe wrote a beautiful letter to him at his exhibition, and he said that the Rebbe spoke about how in art we have the capability of taking a physical, the paint, the canvas, and turning it into spiritual. And you look at a painting, you're seeing it evokes an entire spiritual aspect.
Sure. And you're seeing something purely physical, but
it was made of physical substance, but you see clearly it's turned into spiritual.
It's been transformed.
So the Rebbe said we have responsibility, and that the Rebbe actually went through each level, like still life, which is with inanimate objects, and then he talked about, and if you paint animals, and if you paint humans, it's a higher level, and if you paint humans in the act of, or performing, or involved in Jewish, either the ideas from the Torah wisdom, or in the doing of a particular commandment or something like that, that the Rebbe said you actually elevate the entire art movement to its highest level.
Really? That's interesting.
Which is very profound, actually.
That's interesting. What's your feeling about somebody like Marc Chagall? I know to ask one artist about another is probably not too safe, but I'm going to take the risk.
Well, Marc Chagall was actually born in a religious family, and he comes from a very Hasidic area in Vitebsk, and you can see that in many of his paintings. There was a more secular aspect to Marc Chagall's paintings, and he lived during a very big, you know, art movement towards the modern era of modern art.
Right.
His things are beautiful in color. You know, I appreciate it for on certain levels of
now
things.
There's another artist who both of us are familiar with, who lives in Hebron, in Israel, in a very dangerous part of Israel, and his name is Baruch Nachshon. And his art really is on fire. When you look at his art, and of course some of it's very political, and most of it is very mystically based, and also very much based on Torah Hasidic themes.
Right, profound. He does inspire me very much, actually. I actually visited him, and I spent Shabbos there once with him and his family, and he has such lack of wall space that he started hanging paintings on the ceiling. In the middle of his dining room, he actually attached a whole chuppah, you know, a marriage canopy, and it's very, very interesting place.
That means the sales are not doing too well.
I don't know. I don't speak for another artist when it comes to sales. But they are very interesting paintings. He has beautiful landscapes of the area of Hebron. I know that he's inspirational through his art and has a lot of he inspires the people around him living in that particular
Right.
situation.
Well, he definitely is a leader.
He's like a leader in that
he's
community.
more than just an artist there. He's a
Right.
leader who really is
Right.
looked up to
Right.
by many people.
And as we see from most artists, that they really are very passionate people. I mean, I think it takes a lot of passion or a certain need to express that passion, and when it comes, like it's so hard to express it in words or other ways. I think when someone expressing it so much from their depth into a painting, I think it shows a certain passion. So you usually find many times artists involved, not just their art. It's like what they want to say something with their art. They'll be involved in movements. You know what I mean? They tend to be very passionate people.
How about somebody like a Gam? He has a whole different style, which is much more modern. He's a modern Israeli painter who is very religious, but his style is
They do
totally
have religious
different.
themes, yes.
He does the religious themes
He's very
also.
geometric.
Yes.
Completely different. It's like you can't
from
even...
one world to the next. Exactly.
Right.
All right. Well, listen, we want to wish you tremendous success in your work. I hope you'll continue to just let that creativity flow. And
It's hard to stop it.
I'm glad to hear that. Because if you ever woke up one day and you didn't feel it was still there, you'd be in trouble.
You don't worry.
Okay,
I have faith. I have faith. That's what it's all about, right?
That's right. Listen,
Okay.
you got to have faith that's going to continue. Very good. Okay. So just want to ask everybody to keep in mind, maybe there's some special mitzvah out there. Michal Mutzdik found that his special mitzvah was art, and he could touch another Jew by being able to express that special gift that he has in order to be able to put his thoughts in a beautiful format in a piece of art. But each and every single one of us has some God-given gift. And each and every single one of us has the ability to share of ourselves with somebody else, whether it be through the hand in terms of painting, it could be through writing, it could be through speech, it could be through just calling somebody and saying a good word or sharing a little bit of a thought of Torah, or being able to give them an encouraging sentence or two. And that's something that's a gift also. And it's a gift that we have from God that we need to use as much as possible. So let's hope that everybody out there, whatever it might be, this week, do something. Share yourself, share your gift of life and your gift of goodness with another person in order to be able to make this world a better place. Because that's really what it's all about. Thank you very much, and all the best. Take care. We'll see you next week. Shalom.